Walking with Mum by Olivia Preye. Sometimes I don't know what to do with it. It feels uncontainable. Where are you? It's been a year, and I find myself saying,
"You've got to see this! I'm a mum! I'm a mum! I did it!"
I'm a mum like you, and you're a grandmother. Come back. Please, just come back, Ma. I want you to stroke my hair. I want us to squeeze hands again. I want you to tell me about your button tin. Love pours out of me like milk, and now I understand how much you loved me. Then love becomes pain, and I am crippled by it. Love for my baby, love for you. It grasps my heart and pulls me down, and I feel I am drowning.
Breastfeeding mother on armchair.
I have become a statue, cold, blind, deaf.
Been looking at those boots for weeks now.
What was it that made me put them on?
The last walk I did with Mum. It also happens to be the walk I was doing when I last spoke to her on the phone. I've probably walked it hundreds of times with my baby inside me and now with her strapped to me.
I remember crying to you after another failed round of fertility treatment, saying, "I'll never be a mum." You said, "It's so tough what you're going through, but you will be a mum, sweetheart, you will. And all will be well. All will be well." All was well. And still I cried, and every day woke up and thought, if only I was pregnant, then life would be perfect.
The boots are slightly too big. How she carried her feet along the Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage in a heat wave in these galumphas, I really don't know. It was raining when I left the house. But now the sun's reappeared and I can see the moisture evaporating off my feet.
I was going for a 7-week viability scan when you were doing your big walk. I was finally pregnant, so we were all holding our breath. You were the first person I called. We were ecstatic. Later that day you texted me from the B&B in the Pyrenees. I had said to Francis, my walking buddy, if the scan went well, I'd buy champagne. And then you sent me a photo of the two of you raising glasses, beaming smiles, slightly sunburnt. Will I ever lose the need to call you first when I have good news? That explosion of happiness, the validation that I have done well. It's like I can only access the fullness of the joy once I have shared good news with you, with my mum.
Not long ago there was an ocean of bluebells here. Now they've morphed into foxgloves. The pink is palpable.
One day, you'll stick each of your fingers inside of them, just like I did and Mum did when we were little. Holidays, to us, meant walking. We walked through blizzards, waded down rivers, climbed up mountains, slid down them on our bottoms when it had gotten too dark and we'd forgotten to bring torches. We circumnavigated lakes and walked through so many fields. You are here, aren't you?
Thoughts go around my head in cycles. Disbelief, regret, resolution, hope, fear, disbelief. Sometimes they stay in the peripheries, but sometimes they swoop down and try to catch me. If I could just stop them. The raindrops are evaporating off the leaves now too. The leaves are dense. The branches are reaching out to each other across the lane. The hedgerow's teeming with life. The sound of the bees, the noisy, hungry sheep. And the clouds are making the hills change colour. Everywhere I look, everything is evolving.
The day your body gave in, my brothers and my dad sat in a circle holding hands, and I sang. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. That afternoon we went for a walk, because no matter what had happened, your dog was still a collie and needed walking. Actually, it was a blessing. We walked her every day, often silently crying, facing forwards we didn't have to continually acknowledge each other's pain. Putting one foot in front of the other, noticing to our astonishment that life outside was continuing. Walking to town for your funeral on that cloudless day, church bells were ringing and people were still on holiday smiling, eating ice cream. But I noticed that in the field of sunflowers, a few of their heads had begun to droop. I pressed my bump up to the head of your coffin and placed my hands over where your forehead would be. I breathed slowly and deeply. This is your granddaughter, Mum. One day I'll thank my daughter for the unbelievable strength she gave me to get through that week. Being strong for her saved me.
The time I began walking again with my daughter outside the womb synchronised with the first sighting of my mum's favourite flower, the primroses. It felt like she was talking to me. Spring had never meant so much to me. I could feel hope. We think my mum contracted sepsis from an untreated walking wound. Nothing but a terrible tragedy. Is it though? To die from doing something that she loved and to have no idea that she was about to die. To live such a full life and to be the best role model a mother could be to her 3 children. Is it a tragedy that the bluebells disappear and are replaced by foxgloves? I was sad the other day because I noticed that the blossom from our apple tree had come and gone and I had missed it. Be back next year, my brother had said to comfort me. But we can't count on next year. Yes, it will be back and hopefully I'll be around to see it. But we can't take that for granted.
Grief is hiding everywhere. in the shade of a tree, in between the blades of grass, in between the clouds, in between each breath. And it jumps out at me, often when I least expect it to, clutching at my heart, snatching the air from my lungs, demanding every fragment of my core.
The tragedy isn't that the blossom's now gone. It's that I hardly noticed it when it was there.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, aren't we all just bluebells that are going to be replaced with foxgloves? We all lived and loved for a while, and then made way for new life. And the more we loved, the brighter our petals.
Oh, primrose, oh, primrose, here you are telling me that you never left me. Oh, bluebell, oh, bluebell, here you are telling me that you never left me. And when you flew away from your body, no longer serving you, no longer serving you, you grew leaves and petals, and you multiplied, and you multiplied. Oh, foxglove, oh, foxglove, here you are telling me that you never left me. And when you flew away from your body, no longer serving you, no longer serving you, I knew you would never leave, because you planted seeds, you planted seeds in me. Oh, primrose, oh, bluebell, oh, foxglove, primrose, here you are telling me that you never left me.
Hello, my name's Little John Ney, and this piece is called 2 Kilometers from KILLALOONTY. Years ago, I got into a taxi in Washington, D.C. I told the driver where I wanted to go, and he asked me what part of Donegal I was from. I weren't expecting that. He was American, but he was from Pakistan originally. That got me curious. How did he recognise my accent? It's good to be curious. Oh Johnny, where will you go? Where will you go? I'm not curious all the time. I wish I was. Frequently, I assume to know more than I actually do know, which is a bad habit. When the chance arose to meet you, I was curious. This is my garage in the west of Ireland. In the west, but not beside the sea yet. They say the sea's on its way though. I know it doesn't look much like a garage, but I wouldn't lie to you. It is a garage. I converted it when the pandemic came along. I hung black drapes and I got every lamp in the house and brought them down to this room. Because I love theatre and I miss theatre. You probably never heard of me, same as I probably never heard of you. Same as most of the world never heard of each other. I'm a storyteller. Aren't we all, says you? We are. We're all storytellers. I gave the garage a name. The KILLALOONTY Coliseum. And despite the grandiosity of that, I have no great desire to appear in big theatres. I've no great desire not to appear in big theatres either. I have a graw for the countryside. Graw is an Irish word that means love. Graw mochri, love of my heart. Graw also means want. I have a want on me. I have a want on me for nature. I have a want on me for narrow roads with grass growing up in the middle of it and trees hanging over it and high hedges and ditches busy with bumblebees and the occasional vision of a valley and hills you'd want to hug. Oh Johnny, where will you go? I have a great graw for small halls where I pull up and wait for someone to come with the keys, and then I unload the van and we have a cup of tea. I spend the day changing the place into somewhere else. I hang black drapes. Then in the evening, local people come. And the hall is different from the last time they saw it. And we go somewhere together. We play. That's the aspiration. We travel through time and space. And then it's over. I load the van. I leave the hall exactly as I found it. As if nothing had happened. Disappear without a trace. Something happened, but it's gone. We come and we go. Maybe we'll be remembered, maybe we won't. Doesn't matter, we happened. And we happened in the fullness of time. And nobody can ever take that away from us. We happened. Oh Johnny. I thank the person who opened up the hall and we say goodbye. And I drive home down the narrow road again in the moonlight. Might see badgers or foxes. Often do. Badgers are mad. Waddling down the road. They don't get out of the way sometimes. So you're driving slow behind a badger. One night I was driving home in a storm of rain and there were frogs bouncing off the windscreen. That was curious. Forgot to Google that. One time I got in a taxi outside of Manchester. I was talking away to the taxi driver and he said, Ireland's very beautiful. And I asked him where he'd been. And he said he'd been all over the north. With the British Army. So here's us now in KILLALOONTY, in the west of Ireland. But not beside the sea. For a while we were only allowed to go 2 kilometres out the road. So I'd walk out the bog road. There's a spot where the old railway crosses the road. A wee railway cottage with an old piebald horse grazing outside it. This place ignites my curiosity. Sense of wonder. Not that I need to know the facts of the history. But this is the place that I wanted to bring you. I don't know why. Maybe because it's magical. A portal. When I imagined us meeting, I saw us standing here. The wee road rises, the cottage on the left, the railway in front of us, no gate, no trains, rusty rail and weeds, a forgotten place. This way back to town, and this way out into the wilds. The lonely old piebald chewing hay at the gable of the wee house, and the slate slipping and the roof holes gaping. This is where I wanted to bring you. The lonely old piebald chewing hay at the gable of the wee house, with the slate slipping and the roof holes gaping. Feels like a good place to start. If ever we meet again, we have this between us. You came all this way out into the middle of nowhere because I asked you. Fair play to you. That'll bring you luck. The taxi driver in Washington DC used to live in Donegal. In fairness, he was more Donegal than he was American. Oh Johnny, where will we go? As we disappear from here, we appear somewhere else.
Barrel Rock by Yasmin Wilde.
Look at this.
A lighthouse with shells on. Memories imbued painted across it. This stuff flies off the shelf every summer. Don't ask me why. I mean, these shells aren't even native to the UK. We don't have a lot of shells around here. Pebbles, yeah. Pebbles and sand. Pebbles, sand and dog shit. And Bude doesn't have a lighthouse. We just got barrel rock, which is a barrel on a pole on a rock with a light on it. It does the trick. Anyway, I'm not complaining. This stuff flies off the shelf. Keeps me through the winter when all the emmets have scuttled off home and nobody comes in here except for the school kids for the sweets. You can spot them a mile off, the emmets, walking very slowly across the road, meandering round Morrison's in family groups like they're at Madame Two-Swords, congregating around the estate agent window, dreaming of a life here, wondering how many of our houses they could buy with their one-bedroom flat in London. I think they'd get a shock, though, if they made that leap, if they did it. This isn't Doc Martin. And the thing about small communities is, if you're on the inside, it's like a warm hug, but get on the outside, well. Oh, hello, love. The lighthouse, yeah, lovely, innit? 7:50, my love. Yeah? It's a lovely day, innit? Parking, yeah, I know, it's a nightmare. Yeah. Oh, toilets are for staff only, I'm so sorry. Yeah, there's a public toilet by the tourist information. Yeah, thanks, love. Last thing I need, toilet bowl full of sand. In summer, I try to walk the dogs about 6:30. 10 o'clock, the sea breaks out in a windbreak rash. Don't recognise it anymore. Roll on September. Kids go back to school. And then beaches are wide open space again. Space to breathe. Plastic lids and lolly wrappers wash up with every tide. You pick them out of the knots of seaweed and sticks, the nylon fishing nets. Anyway, you pick up what you can. Metres and metres of cable tie. Where does the cable tie all come from? Anyway, I feel like the beach is grateful. Like I'm looking after her, like she looks after me. Like she looked after Adam. And anyway, have it pretty much to myself till Easter comes again. All those cold, windy winter mornings, sandblasted face. No wonder I've aged so much. All that, and I saw a deep printer down there this morning. First time in months. We pretended not to see each other. She walked grimly across the cliffs in the opposite direction. I committed the cardinal sin. Insulted her husband, Colin. Colin Prinder is this like self-appointed king of the local messenger boards on Facebook. It's an important bod round here, popular. A word of advice. Don't drink half a bottle of Smirnoff Ice, then go on Facebook. Oh God, I went on an absolute rampage. He deserved it though. All these men were going on about the drugs around here. And why weren't the parents controlling their teens, the youth of today? Oh God, these men, I know a lot of them, none of them had ever changed a nappy. Anyway, so I started off reasonable. I said, you know, you don't always know what they're doing. And even if you do, how do you stop them? Methinks the lady doth protest too much, Colin wrote, with a line of crying with laughter emojis. I think it was the emojis what triggered it. I went into caps lock, not gonna lie. Why don't you get off your fat arse and do something to help then, I said. Some people just want to feel important by hating other people. I saw what you wrote about that refugee dad coming out the sea with his dead kid. At least he was trying to do something to help his family and not sitting on his fat arse, you prick. I passed out. I woke up at 4:30 to 146 notifications. Yeah, a lot of them had really run with that refugee thing, saying that Dad was a disgrace and he was endangering his kids by putting them on a boat, and it was awful. I stopped reading them when they started talking about Adam and how I'd failed and all the crying with laughter emojis. I went up off on the cliffs, looked out over the sea. I imagined Adam surfing as the sun came up. Imagine him riding those dark waves, weaving in and out of the rocks, smiling. Oh, he always surfed too close to the rocks. Even when he was a kid, I would stand on the shore and I'd be shouting at him, but he couldn't hear me, of course, because the sea swallows up all voices. He liked that rush of adrenaline, that danger. Always a big smile on his face. I didn't know about the drugs. I didn't know we had a problem around here. I thought he might have tried weed. I knew he was agitated, moody. He'd stopped surfing. But, yeah, I should have paid more attention. But he was a 16-year-old boy. They're supposed to be moody, aren't they? I suggested he go and live up with his dad in Birmingham for a bit. Not that he would have been any help. He got out of here before Adam had even popped out. Yeah, couldn't resist the lure of living in Digbeth, apparently. Yeah, I was happy. No loss to me. Had my little bump, my little shop. Living in my little bubble. That's the thing about bubbles, though. They burst. Every time you hear the air ambulance go over, you send up a little prayer. You can't help it, to the poor sod they're trying to save. That night, the 18th of May, I remember hearing it going over. I was watching Gogglebox in bed. I remember thinking, oh God, that's somebody's husband or somebody's mum. Bless them. How smug I was. I had no idea. I knew Adam was at a party. It's at a 17th. But I didn't know that there'd be drugs there, and to find out later that Adam was the one who brought the drugs. Molly, powdered MDMA, but it was cut with bath salts apparently. He sold it to 3 other kids. Adam was dead before the ambulance even got there. The 2 others ended up in hospital. I don't know where he got it from. I went mad looking for that dealer to start with. I was so angry. And also I wanted to pass the blame along for it not to rest on Adam because he was just a kid. The parents of those other kids, well, they don't talk to me anymore and I don't blame them. But Leah, one of the girls who ended up in hospital, she came to see me a few weeks after it happened and she brought me some flowers. She gave me a big hug and she said she didn't blame Adam. And that was the greatest gift she could have given me. Oh. Just these postcards, my love? Yep, that's 3 for £1, please. Oh, thank you. After he was cremated, on a calm morning, me and some of his friends, we paddled out into the sea with his ashes. I was on Adam's board. God, you could have seen me. Oh God, I hate surfing. Oh, I always have. Every little wave nearly had me underwater, even though I was lying on my belly. Oh, he would have laughed. Wish I could have gone out with him sooner. He could have taught me. I hired a wetsuit. It was purple. I looked like a giant blueberry. His best mate, Jimbo, he held up Adam's ashes in this canister that we got from our stock room, and we all paddled out and we got into a ring, and then we scattered Adam's ashes into the water between us. They were surprisingly buoyant. My boy floated out to sea and in all directions, and a fair amount of him ended clinging up to my hair and my arms, and I was happy with that. They were singing a song, one Adam loved apparently, although I didn't recognise it. There we all were, bobbing around, with Barrel Rock flashing behind us, ready to guide us, ready to guide the little boats into the harbour, past those tricky rocks, those hidden rocks. Oh, here's Jimbo with my pasty. Hiya, love. Cheese and onion. Tidy. Now, I'll pay you Friday. Ta-ra. Oh, those young people. Looking at all their faces. They give me hope. They really do.
Callum Beardmore, Youth's Folly. June 2020. Sitting restless in the hard-backed desk chair, I long to be out there, the green patches pulling outwards into my youth's paradise of folly that explodes into endless dusty paths like rays of light, extending from bright stars forever in flight. 2017. I'm sat by the hot breath of the fire, which took about 7 hours to light. It's still not burning properly, but everyone's too tired to care. We're 4 miles out of town, just past the entrance to Mortimer's Forest. There's no shops or anything nearby, and Fred's ballsed up the takeaways where everyone's starving. He rang as we walked up the long, unforgiving hill to reach the site, which was pretty weird, being met by some old woman in a caravan to show us the spot. Then there was no signal on the actual site, and when the driver rang to collect our order, Fred missed the call. Great. Nobody was that bothered to start with, but that was because everyone had just downed their 6 ciders that Rob got his 18-year-old mate Niall to buy us. Now if you watch a group of 15-year-olds down 6 ciders in the space of 20 minutes to get the maximum effect, you'll notice that they quickly develop a resistance to the cold, no need for the sustenance of a meal, and if you're lucky, you'll see pure drunken foolery. Not because anybody's actually drunk, but because at the tender age of 15, you must prove that you've reached the so-called maximum effect and proceed to sway in whichever direction the wind takes you. Therefore, not one of us had revealed our growing hunger while we stood on the filthy logs which we had tiresomely rolled over 3 hours earlier, singing a medley of Elvis songs with our arms around each other, to avoid slipping, which might not seem that dangerous, but you're forgetting there's a large, hot blaze in front of us. It's stupid, really. But now the total of 48 ciders has been urinated over the hedgerows behind the tent, leaving the maximum effect to slowly diminish, not that it ever existed anyway. The atmosphere has fallen to a weird, melancholy, warm thing. I'd call it camaraderie, but that sounds too regal for a group of semi-tipsy lads sat engrossed in pointless chat, mostly about how we're going to get something to eat. But you can learn so much about people in these strangely reflective conversations. Everyone talks about their hopes and some fantasy idealistic future. You should read that thing you wrote, comes the voice of Dave, catching me off guard. I didn't write anything, I say, giving him a glare, signalling to leave me be. Come on, he persists. We all know you want to be a writer. Everyone knows you walk around with that book, writing stuff whenever you get the chance by yourself. I fall silent. Out of nowhere, a flying black square propels itself towards me. It's my diary. No. Where did he find that? I catch it and realise I'm going to have to read my no-good, very private thoughts. I avoid the rubbish I came up with early on in my somewhat brief affliction with words. picking one of the better ones. Wide empty spaces, the 5th of July 2017. Alone on the wide empty space in flux, like ducks sweeping that single stretch of pond, never reaching the river that lies beyond, that bold, brash expanse that cannot compare to the serene, that idle pool with such flair transcending from the liquid's delicate ripples at the soft touch of your finger without a care. I choose the serene. Everyone else chose out there where tall black blocks block the yellow sunlight so that no green texture can grab its rays stretching towards the bright for many days. Nothing can move freely in the tight city that moves through busy people with busy minds who trudge and trundle along the hard streets, looking down like sorrow hangs from their souls. That's where they've gone now. It's away from here. Must youth collapse and extinguish itself, becoming something drab and freezing cold? Why does time, in such small space, make things so old? Here will always be fresh, fragile to the mind. Listen, it's still there in the church bells chime, that chime then on Sundays, just after 9. People say it's good. I don't believe them. The fire is slowly dimming now, and the only light comes from the flickering white camping torch we brought with us. The noise is settling and there's a tangible mix of sweat, fatigue and fierce hunger in the air. I look at my upturned wrist. Midnight. 10 hours until my mum will bring the Renault and take me home. 10 hours until she'll cook my bacon sandwich when I get back. 10 hours until food. I'm starving. I look up at 7 faces feeling exactly the same sensation. You know, we could just walk into town and get something, proclaims Fred. 4 miles in the middle of the night. Are you taking the mick? You cocked up the delivery in the first place, comes the flurry of agitated bellows. Fred just sits there, smiling with that expression people do when they know something you don't, that tends to annoy everybody else. He proudly shows Dave his phone screen and announces that Munchies is open till 1. We can make that. Yeah, but it's 4 miles, innit? I say, really not in the mood for a 4-mile walk that'll probably be fruitless. But Dave interjects. But we can rush. I don't get a chance to respond. Everyone stood up, walked over to the tent and picked up their rucksacks. Looks like we're going, doesn't it? Well, all except Isaac, who declares he's too knackered and makes his way over to the tent, that's now been crumpled over by the sudden succession of trampling teenagers grabbing their bags. He wishes us well, though. To be honest, we don't really pay attention to him because we have a mission, an objective, a primal hunter-gatherer urge throbbing in our veins now. I quickly find myself on a woodland road, in a line, surrounded by tall trees. The only light comes from the flickering camping torch that Dave repeatedly warns us will run out any minute. Matt's going on about some party that's coming up and how much alcohol each of us is expected to procure, but we're not really listening. We're not listening because we're walking as fast as we can, breathless, driven by one goal, to get to that takeaway. I zone out. Think about the poem earlier. Was it any good? How am I going to be a writer if I surround myself by people who don't care about it and I live in the middle of nowhere indulging in stupid escapades like this that just don't matter? Black. The camping torch is dead. Fantastic. Jack fumbles in his pockets and pulls out his phone. He's the only one with any charge, so we'll have to use his torch. Guys, I've only got like 20% and we'll need that tomorrow, won't we? Jack disappoints us. Anyway, we're all right like this, aren't we? He reassures. That would be entirely correct, except for the fact we're not all right like this. Well, I'm not anyway, and I'm certain we're getting more breathless, more silent, which means we're speeding up, which means that everybody has suddenly found an incentive to get moving that has something to do with the twitches in the trees getting louder with the dark. My mind becomes absent again. Autopilot. We're marching through the nighttime forest, pacing, pelting the floor. It's a mindless conveyor belt. I think that how I feel about this walk could be summed up more easily in rhythm than actually walking it. We're walking with hard, heavy feet as one, drifting down the silent roads that were dead, yawning with their expanding earthly lungs, twitching the nightmare leaves that were far flung. From us, watching from the banks either side. They look like foothills now, they've grown in size. That's not too bad, actually, I think. I can't think of any more, though, so I find myself staring at the grey gravel of the road again. We're on the edge of the town now, and the enveloping trees are opening up, allowing the starry light to ease our caution. Tom is certainly more at ease anyway. He's singing Castle on the Hill at the top of his voice as we come out of the descending monkey steps of Wycliffe, where the market town of Ludlow reveals itself. We're all singing it now. The camaraderie is back, a warmth that arrives soon after a storm. I find myself mentally noting the feeling. There's comfort here. It's where we belong, where a ruined castle sits on its perch, overlooking all that stem from its roots. The siltstone shimmers smiling at the church. 2 grey onlookers under the starry gas shoots that guide us on our walking quest, where a cone of chips is our treasure chest. What are you going to have? Dave interrupts me. From Munchies. Oh, probably get a chicken burger, mate. Better be open, eh? We've literally just walked 4 miles in 3/4 of an hour. He's right. We need it to be open now. The hunger is even worse than before, if that's even possible. It's tangible. I feel like I'm in the desert, knackered and seeing, what's their names? Mirages. Jack can hardly walk. Mind you, he's still slurring his words, so he's probably still trying to convince us that he achieved the glory of the maximum effect, even though we drank them cans hours ago now. We're walking past the dusty stone walls that guard the town now, walking steadily along streets of butcher shops, market stalls and cafes. They look different now. The place is completely empty apart from us. It's our paradise of folly, like treading a different path at this hour. The place is soulless. We're the soul of the town at this moment, the only life in rows of hard, historic buildings. I'm slowly turning around the corner where Budgeons and One Stop sit next to each other, eagerly pointing my eyes at the takeaway I know is opposite. My mouth waters looking at it. It's closed. Jesus Christ, Fred! Come the angry voices of despair at the perpetrator who set us on this task. What? Stutters Fred. You said it was open till 1, says Jack. Yeah, says Fred in defiance. Look, it literally says opened till 1 a.m. on the opening sign. Where? I question. There, Fred points. Fred, that's Saturday, I pronounce. Yeah, says Fred in defiance. Today is Friday, Friday, I spell out. Fred, I just want you to know that if I wasn't so knackered, you'd be on the floor right now, slurs Jack. Come on, mate, there's no need for that. Come on, Jack. We rush to defend Fred at Jack's excessively brutal comments. Fred watches us attack Jack, smiling. We look at him. Everybody's beginning to laugh. Well, we better set off then. 4 miles back, yeah? Fred reminds us. The flurry of frowns redescends upon Fred. We want to kill him, but we won't. I'm so tired as we set off. Blank. My mind is not functioning properly. It's going over and over tonight's events. I'm rearranging and modifying them into emotional transcript. 2020. Now. I'm still modifying it, walking along the same forest again now. It's still the same, but it looks different somehow. Empty now. No groups of 15-year-old lads learning not to walk 4 miles in the middle of the night. It's so different now. Everything is, though. There's such a difference in being 15 and being 18 at the best of times. But the excitement and the thrill of those things is gone now. It's normal to sit with a few cans and a few mates. I miss it being new, wrong, fresh in every step, a long walk of, I don't know, something I can't describe in conversation. Fresh steps trod neatly in the clod of earth, like new dewdrops that cling to clumps of turf, that burst within a mere hour of their birth, leave footsteps that will always be there, traces of gone by time that stay with care. So, though the brief light of the moment dies, it leaves an ember in the recess of my mind, of turning the corner, checking the time, when we walked with such ripe rhythm and rhyme. The folly of youth ends, but the memory is mine.